Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ask Pastor Keith. Pastor Keith, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good to
Yeah.
hear. So, Pastor Keith, we have a question for you, and today's question is plastic surgery for cosmetic purposes sinful?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I just answer because it's a spectrum. It's not a simple answer, and just like anything in our faith, it's not what you do so much; it's why you do what you do that matters. So I'm gonna just present two polemic on this. One is a person feels so insecure and cannot accept himself or herself based on their outward look, and struggles so much that their self-esteem and understanding of their self-worth totally depends on them. And so they have this one plastic surgery after another, the serial surgery. So once they do it and they notice something else, and on and on and on, obviously that's very wrong. And it's an emotional issue more than anything else. On the other hand, the other end of the spectrum is a person who wants to get, plastic surgery, and yet because of the opinions of other people and peer pressure, and doesn't do it, and yet become very judgmental and critical over the people who actually receive, plastic surgery. That is the worst case. That hypocrisy and the critical judgment and arrogance that comes from it, and envy as well, does not please the Lord at all. So these two are definitely wrong. And most cases that fall in between and here. And we have to understand that we always talk about our inner person, which is everlasting, more worthy and more important. Character formation and accepting who we are, before God, our Creator. All those things are very important. However, Bible does not really deny our physical self either. In the Bible, you'll notice many times the Bible describes about a person being beautiful and form and face and so on and so forth, both men and women like David and Esther, and go on and on and on. And why do they mention it? Because our faith is holistic before God, and God is the one who treats us with this whole body, soul, and spirit. And so therefore, our ministry also has to reflect that. And so for some people, how they appear to other people are not that important to them. But some people, not because they are shallow or unspiritual, aesthetics is very important for them. People are wired differently. People who do not care how they look are not necessarily spiritual. They're just oriented that way in life. There are people who needs to have it in order, and symmetry is important and all that, and designing and arts and all those things. And those people prefer to present themselves in such a manner. And for them, plastic surgery for aesthetic means is not necessarily sin or not even unwise. But there are people who feel like, by changing it and they're adding value and worth to their being, that's obviously foolishness, and it's not going to end well. So once again, there's no direct reference from the scripture, but like Joseph, when he was presenting himself to Pharaoh, he shaved himself. He presented himself as an Egyptian, not a Hebrew, and the appearance is also important in that. And so it's not necessarily sin. And of course, in a perfect world, we like to see people accept themselves perfectly as the Lord has made them. But that's ideal. And where we are is different. And from, our society also is not perfect.
Right.
So our society values a lot about how we look too. In fact, you'll be surprised how much favor you'll get if you are better looking than not, even to children. The adult will deal with them differently. I think it's a long time ago. Dr. James Dobson talked about this. His daughter is very pretty, a little girl, and when she was a little girl, and blonde hair, blue eyes, and everybody loved her. And wherever he brings her, and the adult will comment on her, prettiness, and then talk with her and all that. And she got into a bicycle accident, and she was stitched up, and she was puffed up, and all that. And the little girl didn't understand why adults were avoiding her. So she had a difficult time understanding. Our society is like that. I'm not saying it's bad necessarily, but that's how we are wired. And so having the procedure, maybe a few, one or two, for the sake of aesthetics is not necessarily sin. But once again, it becomes serial, it becomes addiction, and that we become narcissistic in classical meaning. We drown in our own beauty or obsessed with our thing, obviously sin. Once again, we're going to cap this by saying our inner beauty, our character formation, and how we accept ourselves are the most important things through the scripture.
Yeah.
But also having oneself presentable and beautiful is not necessarily sin.
Wow, that's really good, Pastor Keith.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really hope that encourages all of you who are watching. So yeah, thank you so much for that insight, Pastor Keith.
Okay.
And so yeah, that concludes this episode. Please tune in to next week's episode of Ask Pastor Keith. All right, bye everyone.